This conference will now be recorded.
This conference will now be recorded. We're going to store this on the FDOT website and provide everybody links. But the whole point of bringing everybody together today was to provide the FHWA Audit Team for audit number 3 an overview of the FDOT processes as well as the technologies that we use to facilitate them. There'll be a little bit of a back and forth. We're going to go over at a high level what the department does and what our internal processes are, as well as go through the SWEP tool, which is a tool that we use to electronically manage most of the NEPA approvals through the process and how folks are going to have access to it and how that module is also customized for the FHWA folks. Before we get going, let's just do introductions, and then our director, Jason Watts, is just going to have a slight kickoff, and then we'll start rolling through the agenda. But here in central office, we have
Margie Kirby,
Joe Sullivan, Federal Highway,
Victor Micheloza,
Tasha Cornwell, Stephanie Clemens,
Mike Talikoff,
Pete McGilvery.
Ruth Ferlazza.
and hi, this is Jason Watts. Did you want to see who's on the line?
Sure. So on the line, not in the room, I think the only one is Scott Jones. If Scott, if you want to just introduce yourself. And maybe he doesn't have audio, so that's fine. So I guess we're going to shift over to Jason for a quick introduction.
Hi, this is Jason Watts. I'm the Director of the Office of Environmental Management for Florida. This is our 3rd year audit. I'd like to thank FHWA for giving us an opportunity to sit down at the table and show you how our systems work. As we've said many times, I think the audit process is getting better as time goes on. I think having these kind of interactions frequently will help. Let me say this, I think Pete and the whole staff will tell you this a million times, but after training today, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to bring them up, give us a call. We would much rather you ask the question when you get frustrated than trying to work through it on your own. Just call us up and we're happy to help you and show you where things are and show you how things work. But again, Joe, I do appreciate all the work that you guys have done for us and with us, and I do look forward to another successful audit.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, with that being said, we do have the agenda up on the screen. I also want to note that Scott must, he can hear us, but so he texted hello. So thank you, Scott. We saw that. Anyway, through this agenda, as you can see at the beginning part here, we've got how FDOT complies with NEPA. The supervisors in the Office of Environmental Management are going to lend a hand kind of describing that process. It's also going to have an overview of the FDOT environmental document approval process, how we actually move things through the system a little bit more specifically. And then we're going to shift gears and move over to the technology side. We use a tool called SWEP, Statewide Environmental Project Tracker. We'll give you a quick overview of SWEP itself. We'll show you some general navigation for things. We'll also talk about we're coming together as the 3rd audit for this particular program, and we're going to talk about the things that have changed. So we're going to highlight things within SWEP that have been updated since the last time you guys have been on, so that we can obviously show how dynamic of a application and a process we are, always addressing items as they come up. We'll follow that up with one of the things that we've really implemented this last year is a updated Type 2 categorical exclusion checklist, and so we'll show a demonstration about how that works. We've made some enhancements to our Type 1 checklist. We'll show those as well. And then we're going to turn it over to Ruth, who's going to finish by actually logging into the SWEP system as an FHWA auditor. So you guys will see as Ruth shows you how it'll look when you guys come in. Obviously, one of the big things about having the statewide environmental project tracker, and thanks, Luis, I'm glad you joined us. One of the things we've been able to do with the statewide environmental project tracker is everything is roles-based. So Jason, as the director of the Office of Environmental Management, his roles and responsibility are different than the district Office of Environmental Management leadership, which is different than Margie and Katasha in the approval process. Every type of role is just that. It's a role that has certain responsibilities. They can see stuff and do stuff, and other roles can see and do different things. And so in the end, when we log in as an FHWA auditor, it's really logging on, removing all the editing capabilities, just drilled down to the approvals for this audit period, and then just providing you guys read-only access to all that material. Joe?
To go along with that, let me ask you the first question. The
Sure.
approvals process itself,
Yep.
when you log in as a DOT representative, you only have certain rights of approval, correct?
100%.
So Katasha can approve certain things, but then she cannot approve unless given that responsibility, something that Jason would be able to.
That's right. 100%. So we
literally that login, that PIV, what we would use, or
Yeah.
the code, whatever you use to log in,
Yep.
that is the only thing that allows you to get those approval rights.
That's right.
Okay.
100%. As a matter of fact, there's a director role, and at the moment, there's only one person in the entire organization, the Florida Department of Transportation, that has it. Jason has it. If Jason was for any reason not going to be in, he was going to be on vacation for a week, he can create a delegation which assigns temporarily his role to another person. And when that person signs on his behalf, it'll say whoever that person is or Jason Watts. It won't be just their name. You'll be able to distinguish.
That scrolls all the way down into the district.
It does. It does. Yep. And it's a formal process that's tracked. You can only delegate your role to somebody else. They have to have the ability to accept that role, and then you define how long they have it for as well. And I guess kind of on that, just so you know, the way that people actually gain access to SWEPT in itself is we have a full developed process, which is there are 3 people in each of our DOT districts. There are the environmental manager, the project development manager, and their supervisor, which is in some cases the PLEMO administrator, the environmental administrator, just depending on how they're organized. Those 3 people, when someone needs access to SWEPT, they provide a formal request to us, and they tell us specifically what role they should have within the system. So if a project manager has a request or state entry person has a request, we take that request, we send it right back to their leadership, and we ask them in writing to approve this request. And we don't create any roles with those rights unless the leader over those roles has provided written authorization to do so.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I think I'm going to drive Margie, but the first part of the presentation I think is going to be her. Let me just talk about some of the logistics before I hand it off. We are recording it. This is GoToMeeting. Feel free to type a question in the chat. You're not on mute. You could talk if you wanted to, and honestly, there's not a ton of us, and it's a small group, and the whole point of this is to make sure you guys understand what's going on. And if you got questions, just ask. Just like Joe's already asked a couple questions, just feel free to ask. We want you guys to have the answer. And exactly like Jason was saying earlier, when we get to things and you're starting to think about it, or how does this work, or why do you guys do it that way, just ask the question. We want you guys to have the information. Just reach out to us. You'll notice on there's a website link. That's where this recording and accompanying PowerPoint are going to be uploaded. Once they're there, it'll probably take till tomorrow or something, maybe this afternoon. I'll cut and paste the internet address, forward it to you, and you can get directly to it. As we talked about on the agenda that you guys looked at, this is basically the topics, and it's the last slide before I hand it over to Margie. But the topics are going to be how we comply with NEPA, the FDOT environmental processes, then we'll shift over to the electronic systems. We'll talk about the statewide environmental tracker and the improvements that have happened there, and then we'll finish off with logging in as one of your team members and showing you guys how it all works. So with that, Margie, if you don't mind taking on the next section, appreciate it.
So in a nutshell, if you will, how FDOT complies with NEPA is by following the procedures we have laid out in FDOT's Project Development and Environment Manual. And this manual can be found on FDOT's OEM website. You will see the individual chapters of the 2-volume manual listed there, as well as most recent update dates associated with that there. So the manual does embody those processes that, when followed, bring us to documentation, environmental and engineering review and analysis that complies with NEPA, federal, state laws, regulations, and requirements. The manual is maintained by the Office of Environmental Management here with periodic updates to be sure we're capturing the latest iterations of those laws, regulations, and requirements, and to provide clarification as it becomes apparent that we need to clarify occasionally based on questions, comments, and consistency issues we see arise. Again, it does provide a framework for consistent technical and environmental documentation for our transportation projects. We even have a chapter in there on FTA, so on how to. So, quick overview of the phases of the project delivery pipeline with FDOT. Of course, we have a planning phase. You're familiar with FDOT's approach to doing pre-PDN work through ETDM screenings, efficient transportation decision-making, shared screening, outreach to environmental resource agencies and stakeholders. Planning environmental linkage elements include alternative corridor evaluations and other studies. In addition, districts have SWAT teams in place, teams that can look at information generated from ETDM screening events and planning studies and either do pre-PD&E work to help focus a future study or help focus a scope of services developed for a project development and environment study. PD&E is essentially for those major transportation projects that would require a CE2 environmental assessment, environmental impact statement type of document where NEPA documentation is prepared. That with design, you will often see, I think from MPO's perspective as well as on some of the federal guidance, what you see referred to as PE phase. We call it PD&E and design. Following PD&E and approval of the environmental document, location design concept acceptance is granted and the project advances to design, where design details are worked out, construction plans are developed, permit applications are made, the right-of-way acquisition maps are developed, the right-of-way acquisition begins and ends prior to construction. Commitment tracking occurs throughout these processes. All right, you're all familiar with NEPA document classes of action. And I will just really focus on those two bullets under Class 2 categorical exclusions from your perspective in reviewing our documentation. Type 1 CEs are prepared by our districts and are signed off on by our districts. They are those minor projects. Categorically excluded. You're all familiar with that. And they have a separate form or checklist in SWEPT from Type 2 CEs. Type 2 CEs also have a separate form or checklist that the districts prepare that ultimately get reviewed and signed off on by this office. So just to clarify, Type 1 CEs are district documents. Also in SWEPT, Type 2 CEs have a document template in SWEPT. Next, please.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, reevaluations. So we have some guidance in our manual on when to prepare a NEPA document reevaluation, and it's essentially if a year or more passes since the time the original NEPA document was approved, and a major federal funding phase is to be opened. For example, a design phase or right-of-way acquisition phase. We would look towards having a reevaluation prepared. If there's a major design change or major change in law that would require us to go back to and look at the project impacts, we would see a reevaluation. And as you see in this flow chart, there is we would have the conversations with the district. We do have a review process for reevaluations. Occasionally, rare occasion, they can be a consultative reevaluation. For example, if design funding is not available beyond a year since the original NEPA document was approved, but nothing else has changed, there may be an opportunity for consultative where we don't necessarily approve the document. However, the district does complete information in SWEP anyway and records the date that we did the consultation that our signature is not needed. Some clarification there. Type 1 CEs, it's essentially depending on the timing, since these determinations are made during design. If the district would go back and look over their analysis, their information, update that type 1 form in SWET and date it as such. And that is it. The next presentation is with Victor. With that, I know I covered like the entire world very quickly. Are there any questions?
Right, and the intent was, and certainly we'll see if there's any questions, but I wanted to hammer down the point that there are very full presentations that we've given in the last couple of years. We have them recorded. We've provided them to the FHWA team and provided links for them. So even if anybody, we want to answer your questions today, absolutely, but we just don't want you to think after the end of this meeting you don't have access to the information. We've provided all the links that you can review on your own time if you have any questions. But I think Joe felt really comfortable about most of this team being the same that we've been through for a few years. Now, that being said, if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them. Does anybody have any questions for Margie before we jump over to Victor? Okay. Well. Oh, you got a question? Okay. Like I said, even if you don't have a question at this moment, we've got lots of resources for you, and we're always happy to follow up with you. So, Victor, we did want to put in the slide for interchange access requests, because we know that it's a FHWA focus area as well as it's a FDOT focus area for this year's self-assessment. So, Victor.
Okay, so the interchange access request approval process with NEPA is new. We did not discuss with you last year. The new policy came about May 2017. Streamlining the NEPA process and the interchange access process, recognized that there was a lot of overlaps between the previous 3 policy points that are evaluated with the interchange access request process. So they eliminated the 6 policy points and say that those can be evaluated in NEPA, and now interchange access requests remain with only 2 policy points related to safety, engineering, and operational acceptability determination. So the complication of the interchange on the PDNE project, which have interchange access requests, is that there are 2 approval processes within one project. One approval process is NEPA, which has been assigned to FDOT, and then another approval process is for the interchange access by FHWA. So we work with our division office right here to come up with a sub-process on how we can approve those interchange access requests. The slide displays how that process works. In the nutshell, there are 3 steps that need to be done to obtain approvals. Okay, so step number 1 is the completion of what we call SONE, or Safety, Operational, and Engineering Acceptability Determination, which is done by either Chief Engineer or FHWA. It depends on the programmatic agreement which was signed between FHWA and FDOT 2014. So after SONE acceptability determination is made by either one of those two, then NEPA approval is done by us pursuant to the agreement that we signed with FHWA in December 2016. When we are reviewing PD&E studies for interchanges, we want to make sure that the other 6 points which are now not covered under SONE has been addressed. These are related to purpose and need, planning consistent, land use, other environmental consideration, to name just a few. So if we review and verify that the concept that received the safety, operation, and engineering acceptability is the same as the concept that we will receive LODCA, and then the NEPA has been approved, then we are going to the third step, which is requesting the final approval from FHWA. And the final approval from FHWA is done outside our office through Systems Planning Office, so they coordinate with our FHWA division by writing the letter, completing a table that we discuss with FHWA, that we address the other 6 points, then they check. So that is the independent check. We check those 6 points, but Systems Planning Office also verify in that table by checking those points, then submit the letter. FHWA verify that, and then they sign it, the letter, and then the final approval has been done. So in the nutshell, that's how we do interchange approval within PD&E studies.
Does anybody have any questions for Victor relative to the interchange access requests and approval process? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. This guy's wireless. Let me hand that down there. Yeah, just press the button to turn it off.
Yep.
And now we're going to go to Katasha. Again, if anybody's got questions, just feel free, follow up here, follow up later. It doesn't matter. Whenever the question comes up, we're always happy to field it for you guys. So that was at a very high level, talking about DOT kind of processes in general. Now, how do we get that stuff in the SWEPT? What are the processes that go through the districts? How do documents get approved, and who's involved in all that? Katasha's going to walk us through the next few slides, and then later on, I'm going to show you how we do it within SWEPT.
Right, and so these slides aren't new either, other than just some name changes based on updated staff. But these are the points of contact in our office as well as OGC. And so we're starting out with, on top, the environmental staff, what we call project delivery coordinators. Each district, each of our 7 districts is assigned a primary project delivery coordinator, which is the person on the top there, and they each have a backup person assigned to each district. As well as on the kind of underneath the districts, we have engineers that are assigned to each district as well. So those are kind of our primary set of folks in our office that have that initial contact with districts when they're going through project reviews, and as well as having, monthly or regular regular meetings to go through projects and keep on top of what's happening in the districts. In addition, just to kind of continue through this chart, we have myself, Katasha Cornwell, Margie Kirby, and Victor and Pete, all on the administrative support side. So these folks in the environmental and engineering boxes report to either myself or Margie or Victor. And so as the environmental documents go through the process, which we'll see on the next couple of slides, then we start getting involved in that review and confirmation that those documents are ready to go for the director's approval in the end. And then on kind of the bottom right side of the slide, you can see our OGC, Office of General Counsel folks, that also support our project delivery environmental review process when needed. So All right, so this is a high-level overview, which is a chart you guys should be pretty familiar with. Well, go ahead.
Do we lose sound because of the Wi-Fi?
Oh, no.
You're
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
they should be fine.
So this is kind of a high-level overview of the entire project sort of delivery process from the ETDM all the way through our what we call LDCA, or when the environmental document gets approved. So we have that initial ETDM screening where the districts are going through that process. Our project delivery coordinators and engineers are looking at the project environmental, the PED, the preliminary environmental discussion. They're looking at classes of action when it's time. They're going through that purpose and needs review. So that is happening in conjunction with the districts and project delivery coordinators and our engineer. And then as necessary, when there's questions about that class of action, the administrators are getting involved, and occasionally Jason if necessary. And then as the project initiation takes place, the districts are really taking the lead on developing all the technical studies, getting the project to the point where they're moving through developing that environmental document. OEM's role when we're looking at the technical studies to support the environmental document, we have reviews at certain stages, certain documents. We look at the PER, we look at the natural resource evaluation. When we have adverse effects, we look at the craft. So we do get involved in some of that review. 4F, obviously, we have to look at that. When we have MOAs with the SHPO, we get involved in that process as well. So as the projects are getting developed, we definitely have points along the way where we're part of the process, as well as, like I mentioned previously, those monthly coordination meetings, and some of them are a little less than monthly, but they're still, regular coordination meetings. So once the project is ready for review, our project delivery coordinators and engineers are that first sort of stop where they do the initial review. If we need legal support at that time, they review the documents as well, go through ERC at that point in time, and then do some comment resolution, which we'll talk about more detail on the next slide.
What triggers your legal document review?
Well, there's 4 things. So the first thing is if the district asks for support, we may see something where we feel like we need some support, just something that may be a little controversial, a little unusual. The OGC, if they see something that they want to be involved with regard to that review, then they can say that they would like to be part of the just general, what we call general legal review, or of course if we have legal sufficiency. And we're not waiting till the very end. We're involving them at the beginning of the review period to help us get that document to the point where legal sufficiency isn't going to be a showstopper. So kind of continuing on, we go through the initial review, and depending on the class of action, we'll have the public hearing after the initial review, or for type 2s, we do our initial review after the public hearing. The district will go through updating their document, and then we have our second set of review, that's that final submittal to the department through SWEPT, where we're doing that final check to make sure everything's good to go for Jason's signature. And you'll see there that legal sufficiency review at that final review stage, and that's where that kind of comes in to when we need that final sufficiency review. Otherwise, legal is looking at the document with us along the way if one of those other 3 triggers happens.
In a reevaluation of the EIS, does legal relook at
It depends on if one of those 3 things is triggered. So not necessarily every single time, but we haven't had one of the, have we had a reevaluation of EIS? I'm not 100% sure. One reeval. Okay. So the next one, we'll go into a little bit more detail about the process, which is probably a little bit hard to read, but yeah, and it's not a new slide either. There may be a couple tweaks here and there, but there's just, it's pretty much the same process we've had before. Again, that very first row, steps 1 and 2, is where the district is kind of fulfilling those roles that Pete was talking about earlier with those editors, the district reviewers, and then that sort of step 2, the management team kind of really doing their final QC of that environmental document as it's coming to OEM for the initial review. So we have the environmental document submittal form that gets routed through those management folks in the district to kind of confirm the document's ready for our review. Then we move down to step 3, and our project delivery coordinators are getting that document, so they're getting an environmental document submittal form through SWEPT to tell us, hey, we're ready to go. We get the actual document for review in ERC. Again, the team, the OEM team, is typically the 2 PDCs, the engineer, and then OGC if necessary, taking 30 days to review, if they need the full 30 days, to review the document and provide comments back to the district. So step 4 is where there's some back and forth. The district provides responses to our comments, and then, and that typically is a week or two. We don't have a set in stone time frame for them, but just generally about that amount of time. Then there's the comment resolution period where the PDCs and the other reviewers, whoever else is on the team to review, make sure their comments have been addressed. Sometimes there's a little extra back and forth. But project delivery coordinator, yep. So, which I don't know if it actually says that on this chart, but these folks in the environmental on that chart there. So that leaves us at step 5. So again, initial review, 30-day time clock through ERC. Final review is steps 5 and 6. And Pete, maybe highlight that approval process, little box there to keep going to the right.
Oh, this guy?
Yeah, so what happens is, again, for a type 2, you go through all steps 1 through 6 after the public hearing. For an EA, you go through steps 1 through 6 prior to the public hearing, and then we go through these steps again, 1 through 6, for the FONSI. We go through these steps 1 through 6 for the draft EIS, and we go through steps 1 through 6 for the final EIS. So, but anyway, so now all the comment resolution has taken place, and the district's ready for that final approval. So again, the district is submitting that environmental document this time with the environmental document submittal form, confirming that they're ready for us to review it. That document is then in-swept officially for our review. Moving on to line 6, the project delivery coordinator just does one last check. Have all the comments really been addressed that we asked for in the first round? Generally we're getting these documents back relatively quickly, but occasionally a little bit of time has passed and maybe there's been a slight change. Maybe the district is waiting on something to get kind of finalized. So they're just double checking that that document is ready for the administrator, for me and Margie to look at. If there's a little tweak that needs to happen, we have a little process called minor edits. They just can kind of quickly reopen the document, make a little change that they need to make, and then the project delivery coordinator can confirm, that's what we call it, confirm that the submittal is ready for Margie and I to look at. Margie and I have that same process where we have a 25-day review period. In that 25 days, we're looking for, of course, anything that's a fatal flaw, but if, generally what we're seeing is some sort of consistency things that need to be cleaned up, maybe a little bit of clarification here and there in the document, maybe there's an attachment or two that we feel like could help support that we ask for. So we also have that minor edits option as well. So assuming that all those minor edits can get completed in that 25-day period, we also then each confirm, both of us confirm all environmental documents are ready for Jason's signature, and that goes to his swept queue, and then he'll have 5 days to review it and approve it at that time. Yep.
And a couple other things to add on to that, which I think are great, because I think this slide really shows it, is when we talked early on about roles and responsibilities, every step along the way, like a district project editor, those are people that are assigned by the leadership in the district that say this consultant or this staff person has the right to be the person who uploads the documentation or fills out the forms. And they're the only ones that can do it. They can only do it on the ones that they're assigned. And they can't do it in other people's districts. They can only do it in their district. So these roles are very, very specific on what activities they can perform and where they can perform those activities. And this is just a really good slide to show the different people through the process. And every function that they have that function, not other people. It can't be sent up to the Office of Environmental Management until it's been vetted in the district, and the district leadership, all of the leaders in the district have to say, I've looked at it, it's okay to go to OEM, because the system doesn't even pass it up to OEM. It's looking for the environmental manager to sign it, it's looking for the project development manager to sign it. And without those two signatures from the district, it doesn't even move to the next step. Jason, as the director of the Office of Environmental Management, can't sign it. It won't even go to their queue, to his queue, until both Margie and Katasha are satisfied and recommend they go to Jason. And it's like that throughout the entire application. I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's real important. because this was a good slide to see all the various people that are a part of it.
Right. And I actually forgot to say reevals when we circled that approval process. So the same thing is happening for reevaluations, except in the case that Margie pointed out, if we happen to have one, that we do the, and now I'm drawing a blank.
Consultative.
Thank you, consultative process on. But otherwise, they're all pretty much going through this review process as well. Get ready.
Yeah, I think I click on the right thing.
Yeah.
If you don't mind passing that back to everybody. Back there. Yeah. Fantastic. You guys. Okay. So we've just got a couple more slides, and that'll kind of cover the process for us. Make sure I'm clicking in hour. Thank you. Okay, so obviously for quality assurance, quality control, we obviously have a lot of it. You guys have reviewed all that stuff. One of the things I wanted to highlight for you guys, Joe, you might already be aware, maybe others aren't, but we did make an update to the revised plan, and there's a link right there. It's also on the regular NEPA assignment website for when it was published, and in this PowerPoint I'm going to send to you guys. You can click on the link and get there as well.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to highlight that for you. The other thing that I wanted to highlight for you guys before we moved on, because that's always kind of really, really important for us, and it's that idea of training. So this is a slide that's very similar to what we provided last year. You'll see over on the left-hand side we have a training program. That training program is broken up into various tracks, whether it's trainings associated with NEPA assignment, whether it's SWEP-specific trainings, whether it's PD&E overview trainings, or trainings tied to the SWAT process, or specific ones for environmental coordination, consultation, and permitting. So how we do things with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, how we do things with Army Corps of Engineers. We've got engineering topics, as well as, if you want to know more about ETDM, the Fish and Transportation Decision-Making Process, right there as well. We update this stuff all the time. On the right-hand side are some direct links to get there to some of that stuff. Plus the other thing I wanted to highlight, I kind of drilled down, it should show in a second on the screen in here. I'm basically clicking on a few of those tracks, and there's a lot of stuff on the screen, and you don't really need to see a lot of stuff, but what I did want to draw your attention to is the idea of all the yellows. Anything that I've highlighted in yellows in those spots are all brand new things. Y'all have never seen them before. They weren't in place last year when we were doing this, but we have made a concerted effort to really up our webinar recording and delivery system, as well as development of our computer-based trainings. We are in a queue here in the department. We have a section that helps us develop computer-based trainings. They are so buried on the amount of work us and the rest of the department are providing them, that even in the interim, we decided as an office that the information was important enough. We want everybody in the world to have it, our consultants doing the work, everybody. So we went ahead and recorded webinar versions of the CBT that's under development. In some cases, the CBT has been developed, it's up there. Other ones, it's a recorded webinar with the CBT is in the pipeline waiting for them to finish all the glitz and glitter on making it into a CBT. I say that because over on the left-hand side, there are two new CBTs that were developed. One is NEPA 101, and one is NEPA 101 Part 2, which really kind of gives everyone accessing a global understanding. One, what is NEPA and how do we do it in the department? So if you felt like, for any reason, you didn't get enough of how Florida does it, from this meeting, those are fantastic resources to kind of get the details on how Florida does it that you can watch on your own time. Now, on this right-hand picture where you see, it's actually a screen capture of our PD&E manual. So we went back on our PD&E manual page where you can get individual chapters as well as the whole entire manual itself. And if within our training program there are specific trainings that talk about those topics or focused on those topics, we put the links directly to the training. So if you're reviewing this chapter and there's a training that is specific to that chapter, we put the link to that training right next to the PD&E manual link as well, so you can have access to that. So I did all that just to highlight there's lots of resources out there for you guys. There's lots of opportunity. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up for you guys. I think that was the end of the beginning part of this while we have the supervisors still with us before we jump to technology. So I wanted to see if you or Luis, did somebody else join us? I never actually looked. I know Scott's there, Luis is there. I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions at this point for these guys? Otherwise, I'm going to let them go so they can go do other stuff.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm not hearing anything. Thank you guys. Natasha, Victor, Margie, thank you guys for helping us. If anything comes in later, I'll let you guys know. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay. So, all right, well, let's go through SWEPT a little bit. I'll give a couple of slides, just a reminder on what it is, and I think you've gotten a little bit from me throughout. And then we'll do a little bit of a dog and pony, just a reminder on how things kind of work. I'll actually go through a detailed example of the updated Type 2 categorical exclusion, like how the process works and how you assign people and all of those things. Then we're going to see a demo of the Type 2, the new Type 2. I will tell you guys when we get there, and I wanted you to hear it first, is that the Type 2 is a fairly new implementation. It is a day-forward implementation. For those that are working on Type 2s, they know it's a 2 or 3 year process. We didn't make you work in the old way for 2 or 3 years and then release this and say, thank you very much, go convert it all to the new stuff. You know, we looked and said, day forward. So I think in the approval process that you guys are, the approvals covering this audit process, I believe there are 2 that have been done in the new Type 2 form. And while there may be a couple other Type 2 approvals that are after the implementation date, and I'm going to show you the implementation date, they may still be in the old format, and that's why. They had started long before we developed the new, and we're not going to make the entire district and everybody else and all the consultants and all the work they paid for go shift on that stuff. So just as an overview as we move forward, and feel free to ask questions. It's for you guys. We want you to understand. You know, some of the key features, obviously, we keep track of project schedules. It was developed to have a consistent scope of service. The PD&E scope of service templates are now and have been in SWEPT now and been actively used. We're actually working to integrate design scopes of services as well as a combined PD&E and design scope of service. Again, that provides some consistency on the scopes of services that are being developed. It provides functionality to people who manage scopes of services to be able to create templates of representative projects. It gives the control of the language in the scope of service back to central office so that when changes need to be made, they get made in one single location, and future scopes of services being generated using that application have the updated, vetted language that has already been created, things like that. It's an electronic system. It's entirely electronic. I would tell you it's probably one of the first efforts in the department to go paperless completely. It allows us to sign and manage our document approvals and review process. We put everything into one interface so that we can manage it and provide it in a consistent manner. All the project files are the same. All the naming conventions are the same. We handle the document retention period. We know when to begin counting towards retention. We know when retention has been met. We're doing all that instead of 7 or 8 different ways, which was previously how the department managed its NEPA and PD&E assets. They did a great job. They just all did it differently. So we took it as an opportunity to consolidate and do it all one way for the state. Obviously, we've got mechanisms in there. Today, we're teaching you guys how to use it for FHWA audits. We also use it for our self-assessment. We don't have to look in 1,000 places. We can look in one. And because everything's going into the system, then we have obviously the ability to track all the various metrics. How long did it take? Who's it stuck with? What's our average time to process, type 2s? How on average, how long is it taking for us to process reevaluations, whatever the case may be, because it's all happening in one system. It gives us a lot of powerful tools that help us kind of, are we having any bottlenecks? Are we having any successes? If we have a bottleneck, how are we going to address it? What's the issue with that? So it's very, very powerful. The user community is vast, a lot of folks, and those district environmental administrators and managers, we look at those as the leadership within the district that ultimately assign and are responsible for the products that come out of their district. And like I said, before it can even funnel out of the district, that top group there that actually has to sign off on every single one of them to say, yep, it's ready to go. Yep, it's ready to go initially for the initial review, and yep, it's ready to go for signature. It's anything that's traveling from them to us goes through that process. You've got the PD&E managers, project managers, team members. These could be editors. These could be people responsible for specific projects. They all have very specific responsibilities. Then the OEM, project delivery coordinators, are what Katasha was referring to as the PDCs. They're sort of that initial contact in OEM that are assigned to those districts you guys saw that help do the initial review and are participating on every meeting relative to that. Then they move up. Those managers are the environmental process managers. That's Margie and Katasha, that all of those PDCs report to and meet with regularly to make sure that all the documentation and all of the files are up to speed. We've got the OEM quality assurance and quality control staff. It's very interesting. While we're here having a kickoff meeting with the FHWA Audit Team, yesterday we had a kickoff meeting with the OEM self-assessment team, and on Monday we had a kickoff meeting with the entire state of Florida for the self-assessment, all of the districts, to let them know what was coming out. So there are functions within SWEP that support those processes. Then there are functions within the application that support our attorneys, right? They've got to do their legal review. They've got to do their legal sufficiency review. They've got to be able to produce administrative records when needed, those types of things. And then you guys, last but not least, at the bottom there, the FHWA auditors, there's functions in there for you guys as well. At a high level, and we've scaled this back quite a bit because I think at this point most people have seen it or used it, so there's very little on like overall stuff, and we're going to focus more on, well, what's changed since last I looked. But at a high level, how we kind of organize the world, project dashboards, how we track stuff, how things get into the system, how do they create a project, how do they fill out the forms, how do they do all these various things. The project documents for how things are stored and how you have access to it. There's a quality and performance management section, which we use. And then team management, how do you manage the folks on your various teams? How do you assign them various roles? How do you know who's assigned what and what they should accomplish, which projects they're assigned to, those various pieces. The interface hasn't changed. Those same components are at the very top, and then on the left, there's lots of expandable menus. The biggest thing I would say is when you log into the system, what you see for menus and what you don't see for menus is completely tied to what role your username and your password is assigned to. So that structure all changes based on what you can accomplish. And with that, let me turn it over to Mike. He's just going to do a quick eye candy dog and pony show on the overall site.
Specialty. Eye candy dog and pony. Outstanding.
Outstanding. So let me make Mike the presenter. And I'm going to shift this over. It's a little closer to you. And I think if you share your screen, perfect. I think we're good.
Okay, so I'm going to be demonstrating from our one of our testing servers. So you may see some real-looking project data, but it's all testing, so please don't get concerned if you see something that doesn't make a lot of sense. I will be shifting over to the production site for some things. As Pete mentioned, the site is roles-based. That's controlled by this form-based authentication. So you have to put in your username and password on the form, and in order to log in, and that's how it knows who you are.
So I'll be sending those out after. So you'll all get them.
There is a forgot your password function. If you do happen to forget your password, you can put in, if you remember your username or your email address, reset password, and you will receive an email with.
They should know their email address. We'll be good.
Yes.
Yeah, and we'll,
Sometimes people get married, and we may have their old one. That happens from time to time. If you do have any trouble logging in, our contact information, email address, and phone numbers at the footer and also behind this link.
and just because it's been a year, I'll be setting the password to something default, and it'll be in an email that you get, because I'm assuming nobody can remember password for a whole year. I can.
In which case, it'll prompt you to change it as soon as you log in. Also, if it's been longer than 6 months since you've logged in, it'll prompt you to update your contact info, unless Ruth happened to update it when she was refreshing everyone's account.
Hasn't gone yet.
Well, I didn't know if anybody changed. All I had is the email addresses.
They should be accurate.
And if you, I guess I typed the password wrong, and of course, try that again. So type in the password and click the login button, and you get to your landing page. So Joe mentioned everybody's pretty familiar with SWEPT. I'm going to kind of fly through this, just point stuff out. If you'd like to stop me, please stop me.
Looks a little bit different. Your landing page is a little bit different.
So this is the district's view of the landing page, so it will look different than yours. We were going to start with this, and then we're going to move to
we're going to show you what everybody kind of has, just to give you a fluff sheet, an understanding of what those guys can do out there.
Right.
And then she's going to log in as you guys, and you'll see the whole interface scaled down to, the read-only version, the set of approvals and stuff.
So what they've got, it's your basic website layout that hopefully everybody's pretty familiar with. On the upper left, there's a link that takes you back to this home page. Also, this logo will do that. There's a menu that's collapsible. The menu is organized kind of by topic. They can quickly get to their alerts, inboxes, emails they've received from the system. In case they've deleted them from their email, they can get back to them here because we keep those records. They can input the various forms, anything from a type 1 all the way to type 2, reeval, NMSAs, certification forms. We'll go into some of those later. There's a set of project document menus. That's where they can get to the document submittal form. There's various projects needing approval lists. So depending who you are, you can pull up your list of things that you need to approve, and it'll show you those and what I'll give you a link to do those approvals. In addition, folks get emails when they have to do approvals, but if they can't find the email, they can go to those lists.
Right.
Or if they want to know who's got my project right now, they can go to the other list.
Right, because those lists are very dynamic. So if the project delivery coordinator, the first person in OEM, in order for them to get it, that means the district leadership had to sign it. So it's in the district queue. As soon as both of the district leaders sign it, then it jumps up, and now it's in the OEM project delivery coordinator queue.
Right.
Then they see it, it's in their queue. So when they sign it, then it's going to jump up to the process administrators, so that's Katasha and Margie, into their queue. And then obviously after they sign it, it would then jump to Jason's, the director of OEM's queue as well. And so exactly like Ruth said, one of the techniques that people use is, where is my project? Who's got it? Who's next? Kind of thing.
This is just for testing. We have a project dashboards menu that goes into the different project schedules by class of action. Some handy reports, approved CADXs, both type 1s and type 2s. They can search by date. And then the project approvals report, which includes all the different classes of action. We did add recently for permit coordinators a way for them to track their permit projects. And then there's a help menu. This is where you'll go to get help the overview, the quick guides, training videos, contact information, as well as what's new. And
you can always get back on the breadcrumb trail.
You can always get back on the breadcrumb trail.
Link it out, and you can always select anywhere along the list.
So they have their module buttons that'll take them to those various functions. They also have alerts. Because we're on a test environment, there's probably a lot more alerts than a normal user would see, but anything from, hey, you need to complete a certification, to you need to review comments on a Type 2 and resubmit.
And so you'll notice that those are links. So say I'm in the district and I've received an email that there's something for me to review, and I log on to the site. So I have an email that tells me there's something to review. I also have an alert that says there's something for me to review. I can click on the link in the email, or I can click on the link in the alert. It both takes you to the same action that they need you to complete, and then it focuses you on exactly that action, allows you to complete your activity.
And the little bell up in the top by the
Yes.
tag, that if there's an action they haven't looked at or acted on yet, it'll have a number.
Yeah, it'll be a red circle, and then it'll have a number in it for how many alerts are there that you need to have action on. And there can be quite a bit. So think about being like the district leadership, and you have many projects happening simultaneously with several different consultants and project managers and stuff. And, you know, some of these things are new, and some of them are evaluations, and there's lots of things. They can get lots of alerts to kind of focus their attention on, we need you to look at this one and verify that everything's all set to move on.
And they can search these. They can sort and filter in order to get to what they're looking for. There is, and moving to the upper right, we mentioned this is just another, this icon is the same as this My Inbox, this My Alerts is the same as this bell, but just to have them handy, and if a new one pops up, they do get a red number on them. And then this profile icon is where you can change your password, update your contact information, including upload an avatar image for yourself if you so desire. They can delegate authority. So I'm logged in as a district environmental manager, so they could delegate that authority for a limited period of time to someone else from their district. And then they can also log out from there. The other feature I want to show you is search, and just because the data on our test servers can be wonky, I'm just going to search on our production server. So I just search for LAP. I get a bunch of LAP projects in the projects list. If I happen to know an FM number, I can search directly for that number. With or without dashes, you can see it pulls up that project, and then this link will take you to that project page. Something new we've added just in response to district requests is we're now indexing the project descriptions. So, for example, a district may have a ton of emergency projects all done under the same FM number.
No, Joe, they would never. This is one of Joe's big things.
No. Okay, can't happen. So, so our first kind of enhancement toward this is we say, well, we'll index this project description. So what you can do is you can actually, if you happen to know the DDIR number or what this bit of text is, you can search for it with or without quotes, quotes to be an exact match, and then it's going to jump you right to that project.
All associated numbers.
And that one happens to have a lot of associated numbers, yes. In addition, something brand new or relatively new we've added is
within a month,
the ability for them to add additional identifiers to a project. I don't know that it's been really heavily used as of yet.
We've only just started advertising it. So let me jump into it. It's to kind of get to and solve one of the problems you recognized, which was, okay, we had a hurricane in Miami. They had 200 approvals all under the same FM, and we worked through it last year to come up with this approval all the way down to this second, so that we knew, which one you were going to look at. So we do have some districts that the way that they manage those types of events is they get assigned an FM, and that FM has a bunch of money, and they pay a consultant to individually do task work orders to get all of those work kind of chunked out. But the problem is it's still the same FM, but they're doing lots of different work. So we came up with the concept of adding an additional identifier, which will be here we go, yep, he just clicked on it, which will allow the district to say, I have this one FM, we use it for a bunch of things, and maybe I have task work order 1, task work order 2, task work order 3, task order, whatever the case may be, they can put this additional identifier on there. It's an identifier name, and then the value that they want, and then we add it, and then that becomes part of the search as well. So that when you're looking, you don't necessarily just have to look for that FM. You could just look for that identifier and skip that FM altogether and just get to task work order 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, and I will try to show you an example of that. Again, the search data on our test server is a little wonky, but when you do have a result like that, if they have added that as an additional identifier, it would appear underneath these FM numbers. So it would say task work order, colon, and then the number, or DDIR for damage incident report number, and then the number would appear. So if they've added it, it's searchable, and it's in the search results.
We've only just started. It's actually going to be on the list I show you in a few minutes. It says new things we've just done. It's a very relatively new one, like in the last month. We're just starting to advertise it to the district and promote it and stuff. So this,
Unfortunately, it's in it.
yeah,
You'll see it next
yeah. Audit number 3, you're never going to see it. Audit number 4, very hopeful. I'm very hopeful it'll be used, extensively. Although at the same time, also what we're recognizing is that they seem to do it on emergency projects. And honestly, we've had enough of those in the last few years. I really hope we don't even have to see them again. Yeah, it'd be great for it to hit another part of the country. Not that I want anybody else to get hurt. I'm just saying we've had our time,
Indeed. So they also have project lists. Projects they worked on are in their region. These are linked. If you click these links, it goes to the same place that you would get if you searched for the project and clicked on the search result. It takes you to what we call a landing page, a project page, that has some basic information about the project. A lot of it comes from work programs. Some of it they can enter themselves.
Let me hold you up for a second. So that link that you just did, that's a PM's or a manager or even a PDC's project list history. Is that correct?
Right.
So if I'm to Clark, when I get to that page, it has everything that I've done for a period of time?
We are actually moving toward that model. I think our initial model, what it is, it depends who you are, but if you're from the district, your first list is going to be anything that you have been assigned to. So you're on the district project team.
Okay.
If you're an OEM reviewer, it'd be anything, again, you've been assigned to.
Okay.
That can be a lot, and the list just keeps growing.
Right.
So we're going to actually pare that down to recent projects and just have like your X number of most recent projects. And if you need to get to something else, you can use the search. Yeah. Okay, so you got all this contact information, district project team, the OEM reviewers who are automatically assigned based on district, although they can be reshuffled by the help desk if there's a need. If legal's involved, they would appear. They could be assigned by the PDCs, for example. Even more contact detail information like mailing addresses and so forth are behind this link. And then project notifications are behind this link. This is all the notifications that have been generated by the system and sent for this project you can find in the system, and it'll list them out and give you the ability to view details. So you see a list like this. It's searchable, sortable, and then you can view the details of those emails.
What action happened, when it happened. So if you think about like the approval process, right? Mm-hmm. District signs it, they're sending it up to the OEM PDC. There's an email that is generated from the district going to the PDC up here in OEM. That email's on here. Exactly the email that was sent. Then you see the PDC act on it. That shifts it up to Margie and Katasha's. You'll see the email that says, hey, Margie and Katasha, now it's in your queue. They both do their work. It moves on to Jason, or it moves back down. It moves back down. There'll be an email that says, hey, we need you guys to do more work. It moves up to Jason. There's an email that says, hey, Jason, go do it. When Jason does his work, there's an email that says, hey, Jason did his work. It's approved. So all of those notifications that are handled through the system, documenting those steps and promoting the next action are all accessible under that location.
And just to point out, Mike was on the test server, and that's why that was going to and from.
Yes, this is all test data. And going back to the project page, there will be a project map if the segment is on the RCI. It'll be mapped. Yes, thank you. As you can see, this is a push-button project, so apparently doesn't have an exact piece of road to map. There'll be schedule data, if available, from the project scheduling and management system here at DOT. Those would include the milestone dates, like the COA start and so forth. And then underneath that, you have the project documents listing. So that's organized by these folders. And then within the folders, they can upload a document. So let's say they have a scope of service from 5 years ago before SWEPT. They can upload that file and it'll show up in this folder. They can also use the online form to create the scope of service. And that's what these green buttons are about.
So this is a survey question that I got recently. So this is very much, from its onset to now, is transitioning from a library of PDF documents and documentation of the process to really a NEPA electronic processing system.
Yeah, I would agree. So the only things we haven't touched at this point, it comes down, in our world, 3 things. 2 of them you care about, 1 you don't because it's a state process. But we haven't created an electronic version of the state environmental impact report yet. We haven't created a state version of the environmental assessment or the EIS. We are hoping over this next year to start tackling the environmental assessment. We think we've done a fantastic job, and we're going to show it and highlight for you guys how we're handling the Type 2, which used to just be, an electronic form, but now it's not just a form, it's the entire electronic delivery of the document. Some documents are still created off outside of SWEPT and pulled together, but it's then all integrated into a seamless document that gets approved and looks more official, with the cover page and the signatures and all of that stuff. And we're going to use that model to look at our environmental assessment process and see what we can customize for that. So the hope is over the next few years, anything that we can turn into an electronic, consistent, manageable format, we're gonna do that. Because we think it's better for us as customers, we think it's better for the public as customers, we think it's better for future generations of people taking our place, that you have some consistency about how things are being developed, how they're documented, what they look like, what page they're on, what section they should be in, all of those various things. So we see a lot of opportunity to kind of do that. Thank you. Yep.
So within those folders are the files. You can click on the file to view it. They are able to send the files to EDMS, although when the environmental document's approved, those things are automatically sent to the EDMS system.
One thing, because you're actually in a perfect spot, will you zoom in just slightly a little bit on there? Because this was actually a request from Joe from FHWA last year. Sometimes within our project files, there's a lot of files. How do you know which ones? So one of the questions was, how do you know when it was uploaded? Because an upload date is different than a publication date. Right. So as you see up there, there's now the upload date right next to in line with the publication date. Right. If within the file itself, it's actually physically attached to the approval, it's something that should be part of the approval, it shows up as attachment. If it's technical material that's referenced from the approved environmental document, it'll have a different name, and it'll say technical material. And you'll know whenever you see technical material or attachment that this one is part and parcel with the approval.
And another way, if you'll scroll up to the environmental document itself, is we actually put copies of the link directly under there so you can find attachments.
Gotcha. Beautiful.
And so that's the project document listing. I'm going to jump into the Type 2 CE form to show the updates to that. That's
no, actually, so give it back to me.
Okay.
I'll take it because I've got some more stuff to show. So I'm going to take it, and then we're going to give it back to you, Mike. Let me grab it from you. And then if you can just grab that, close it for you guys. All right, so I think we covered general navigation for you guys. That's some of the good stuff we're working on. But then that also takes us back to, hey, you guys have been here a while. What are some of the things that have changed? So here are some of the things that have changed. You guys are aware of a few, the ones at the top, that revised Type 1 categorical exclusion, changing from all yes, no's, and a little bit of comments to that more robust, lots of question and answer and thoughtful responses type of form. That should be all of the Type 1s during this audit period, because if you look at that date, it was effective in 2017 in June. So everything in April 1st of 2018 until, May 1st of 2018 till April 30th of 2019 should cover that. It'll be the same thing with a revised reevaluation form. There might be a couple reevals early on in your audit period that maybe we're far enough along that the district didn't, or our leadership didn't make the district shift it over. So I just wanted to highlight that for you. But it certainly, was updated long enough ago. I'd be surprised. You might have one or two. I'd suspect most of them are using the new form. Another thing that came as a conversation with FHWA was, how do we know the signature that was signed was in fact, signed by the appropriate person and signed within SWEPT? So we worked to create a SWEPT electronic verification stamp that when the district approves a Type 1 or Jason approves the final environmental document, it's a SWEPT-specific time-stamped stamp that goes part and parcel with his signature. And that was developed, as you can see, it was basically a week after this audit period starts. So if you happen to look at any approvals from May 1st until May 8th, there's a chance if you look at Type 1s, they don't have that stamp. But that is automatic. It's from that second forward. So as soon as we did it, they'll have that. One of the things Katasha talked about is that they wanted to work together to have a minor edits process. So say it got up to the Office of Environmental Management, and in our review, hey, it'd be better if you said it like this, or this paragraph really needs to be adjusted a little bit. And in conversations with the district, there's two ways we give stuff back to them. We either say, sorry, you got to start over, and we hand it back to them, and they have to start the approval process all over again and go through all those hoops all over again. Or we can say, hey, this is minor enough in nature. We're going to keep the same review timeline that you've already kicked it over to us. You've started my clock. If you can get this done in a few days and get it back to me, we're not starting the clock all over again. I'm going to keep it on the same clock. And that's probably one of the things I think is really important for minor edits, is that all throughout the process and all those layers of reviews, each one of them is like a gate. Should it move on to the next gate, or should it get pushed down to the gate before? Right. When it gets pushed down to the gate before, it stops the clock and they have to start over. The one exception to that is minor edits, and that's a conversation between all the parties to say, we really want you to make this change, but we don't think it's significant. It shouldn't take you a lot of time. I'm willing to stay on the same approval time clock if you can make this change for me, and then I can see it in time. And so that's our minor edits process. And again, that gets handled from the PDC down to the district staff, as well as from Margie's level down to their PDCs and district staff. It can happen at Jason's level and go down to Margie and the PDCs and the district staff. It can do all those above. But that's a conscious conversation that says, we don't want to put another 30 days on anybody. We're going to work on the same clock. So that went out last June. So again, you'll see when you start reviewing projects, you know, at the very bottom of the project, it'll show all the approval history.
Yeah.
So you'll start after June of last year, you'll start seeing minor edits. You'll see, oh, it got sent back to this person, and you'll see the district say, I completed the edits, that moved it back to the person it was before. Sometimes you'll see minor edits a few times. Yeah. But again, they're all deciding they're going to work on the same timeline, but you'll have some visible evidence about those exchanges and that quality assurance that's happening. The planning consistency part, one of the things that came out in our conversations from the last audit, especially focused on type 1s, was the issue of planning consistency. We added that new section 11, handling planning consistency on our type 1s that went into production in July 9th of 2018. So that's one of those things. You look at an approval before that, okay, it's not going to have it. You look at an approval from that day forward, it's automatically going to have it. It can't be approved without that section being there. The revised type 2 form, we really shifted. We used the same logic that we used on the type 1 form, where the type 1 form was very standard. Yes or no, am I going to have significant impacts and a place for comments? For type 2 forms, it was kind of very similar, related to issues and how they were going to be addressed, and instead that type 2 form has been blown out significantly to provide a lot more thought and include a lot more people on the evaluation. It's actually added even more roles and responsibilities. It's provided some additional control. So for instance, there's a portion of the type 2 that is focused on, say, cultural resources. You can specifically assign people who are cultural resource experts, that they're the only ones that can put input into the cultural resources part of the form, okay? Say I have a consultant that does the crafts and all that stuff. They could be the person that fills out that portion of the form. They can see the rest of the form, but they can't edit the rest of the form. Everybody else can see the rest of the form. They can't edit that piece of the form. There's a lot of granularity on how the district wants to manage the development of their staff and their consultants that are doing the work. And they can set all that up. They assign the roles and responsibilities, and they say who can do what, who can't. So we provide that flexibility. And Mike's going to show a demo of that. The essential fish habitat question on the type 1, that came out as, hey, you guys aren't really considering this. Yes, well, where on this form are you guys considering EFH? And so we agreed with you, and we went into the form and we customized the questions to also include, addressing essential fish habitat. And so again, that went into production in December 5th of 2018. Again, before that, up until May 1st, you're not going to see it. You look after December of last year through right now, you will see it on there as well. The next one, Mike just showed a little bit of it. So project file enhancement, so upload date. How do you know something's an attachment? How do you know something's a technical material? Something to really, anybody who's looking at the file kind of connects things better. Something else that's been implemented that I know Ruth will show is anything that we show as tables, we now use what we call data tables, which allows the elements within the table you can sort and filter and export and all these various things, because we're just using this component over and over again. So it provides a lot of functionality to anybody looking at information that's stored in a table. They can look at it the way they want, drill to it the way they want. They can export it and reuse it the way that they want. There was also a desire for how we're handling the tip and STIP input fields to expand it a little bit to get more specifics laid out. So the input fields have been updated to handle that. And then a relatively recent one, and Mike was just showing, and actually there's a date, which at this point was only a couple weeks ago. I said a month ago, but it was only a couple weeks ago. Email enhancements and the additional identifiers. So the additional identifiers, you understand that's a new input form, a new input field on a form that if somebody wants to be able to put a unique identifier on this so I can find it in the sea of other things. They have the ability to do it. We're going to spend our next couple of months advertising that, so folks are really aware of it. We've already sent out a what's new with some instructions, but we'll follow up with other stuff. The other thing that we saw, and the reason I say email enhancements, is because you know how I said you have access on notifications to see all the notifications? Well, what happens is what we tend to do is we tend to send the email to the person who has the next action. When we do that, we copy everybody else that has an interest. Well, what happens is so many people get so many emails, sometimes people aren't really sure that, hey, I'm only on the copy list versus I'm the person that has to take the action. So we spent some time on the email and actually had action is for. We put it in big bold letters, and then we named the person who has that action, so that the first thing they do when they open it is they know this is for me. If it ain't my name, I don't have to worry about it. And so we've been gradually going through all of the email templates that we have, because there's an email fired for each different thing, so that's a different template that you have to update. And as we update them, that's the type of technique that we're using just to make it less confusing. Those receiving this, bolded, that's right, in the sea of all the emails. So I'm going to show you eye candy on a couple of those things. And then the last thing, I know I had already mentioned it earlier, but I did want to highlight it again, and it's that idea that some of this stuff is day-forward enhancements. Some of this stuff is kind of big structural change for people, and we didn't expect those that have already done a considerable amount of work, already spent the money, already done the development of the documents, to start switching to the new format. What we said was, day-forward, this is your format. And if you want to change, if you're close enough now that you want to change because you see value, you're more than happy to, but you're not required. But now we have 2 new type 2s. I expect next year, maybe at the beginning part of these few months, you might still have some that were a year or 2 into it and stuff, but I suspect you're going to see them shift. But I just wanted to highlight that. Let's see. So I think I got a little bit of eye candy before we jump back over. So just visuals for some of those things I actually had on the list before. So the ESA and EFH assessment, you'll see we've updated the various questions to deal with it. The planning consistency piece, we're doing that as well. You'll see those reflected in those various forms. This is a screen capture of what the Type 2 form looks like now. What you see on here at this very, very high level is, think about it as a table of contents for the document. Your project information, your planning consistency, social and economic, your cultural resources, all of those various things. Each one of those equates to pages of questions and answers in rights. Then there's a list of people who have been identified as editors, and it has their initials on people who have editing rights on those individual pages. And then who are the reviewers? So you can have editors, then you can have reviewers. You can even have a lead reviewer that reviews everything from everybody else and becomes the gatekeeper of all those lead reviews to pass on to the district and say, I am the district consultant lead. I have been the lead reviewer. I've looked at all of the subs and all of my staff, and yes, district, it's good. I give it to you, and then it goes through their review process. We've provided a lot of flexibility so the district can think about this project, how they want to have it set up, who needs to be able to edit it, who needs to be the reviewer of it. And so all of these assignments are very customizable for them. They don't have to be consultants. They don't have to be district staff. They don't have to use all the roles. They don't have to use any of the roles. They can set it up the way that they want. It has to go through the district project manager and leadership, required. But if the project manager did all the work and stuff and then sent it to everybody above, we're not going to tell them they can't. If the district is so complicated, they've got 15 different consultants working on different parts of it, and they want different people on different parts of it, they can do that as well. And then have one that's the focal point for all of them, they can do that as well. So we just give them the tools. We establish what the required expectations are, and then they can set it up however they want within the system. So Mike's going to show that. Then some of the other enhancements up there, we talked about the minor edits process. We talked about some of the notifications. Here's a nice screen capture on the stamp that we talked about that you guys will see. So every time it gets signed off, this electronic stamp that tells you exactly date all the way down to the second it was signed off. So you have some assurances that it came from our system as well. Mike had also talked about permit tracking. So the permit coordinators have a position within the SWEP system now, and they have methods to be able to move on sort of that next stop about what are the permits, how are they going to manage them, when are they going to collect them, what type of permits are they, what are the timelines for them, and all of that. I would tell you that particular piece is an optional piece, and we do have some districts that are integrating with that heavily. Some of them already have some processes in place, and we aren't mandating that you use our system and follow our process at this point. But we have functionalities in place to help them, and for some of them that weren't that far along, they're very happy for that assistance. This is just a couple other screen captures for the form enhancements. We talked about having data tables. We also allow within our comment forms, there are rich text comment forms. You can now copy and paste tables in there and images in there, because a lot of times it's much easier to convey that information with an image or an Excel file or something like that. You can embed it. In the latest PD&E manual that was delivered in January of 2019, it had a lot of standardized language, so all the forms have been updated to reflect all the standardized language. It's kind of like that idea I was talking about earlier with the scope of service, where we have control over it. So if a section of it needs to update, they update that section. The next scope that gets generated is using that updated section. It's the same thing all throughout all the forms. As the PD&E manual is updated and a chapter is updated, and if any standard language is updated, we take those updated standard language pieces and we put them directly into SWEP, and the very next approval is in fact using those updated forms. So it gives us it used to be a lot of people had Word documents, right? And they used to create things and they'd use the same one over and over again, and unless they were really doing their due diligence to see if that one piece had been updated, chances are they may have used some of the wrong language in the past. So we've removed that. That's not even a way that they can develop the document anymore. They can't develop the type 1 and the type 2 and stuff. They can't develop it outside the system. They can only develop it in SWEP. Okay? Period. Which means we know they're using our language. We know they're using our stuff. They can't do it any other way. There's a little more description in here, and again, we talked about the attachments and the upload date, things like that. We also put in an ability to flag stuff as lab projects. You saw that it was part of the search as well, because part of the question we get asked is how many projects are lab. Every so often, and we've got the ability to get that information up to our executive leadership to let them know for that. Because I guess that's an important point, and I assume these guys already know, if it's a lab project, it follows the same process. I mean, lab project is the district's responsible for it, and it follows the same process. Everything the department's doing, they're doing the same on lab. You've already seen this couple screen captures because he already went through it, but one of the things I did want to show you is that approval history. So this is at the bottom of every single one of those project files, and it gives you a good indication of who did what and when. There's that ERC, so initial stuff and how it flowed from the district, how it went through the management. So there's that PDM manager, and it flows up to the district manager, the PDM. It gets confirmed by, in this case, the OEM, project delivery coordinator up here. They go and they work on that for a while. Notice there's a lot of time gap between 12/14/2018 and 3/1/2019. So they're in that other system reviewing comments back and forth, reconciling everything, and they finally get it to a point where they're ready to start thinking about going through the request for approval process. And they've got the ability, it's shifting through, there's that project manager again, it's coming through the district leadership, it's coming up to OEM, it's working its way, it left OEM, PDC, it moves on to the next level, and then, whoops, hey, we need you guys to make some changes. Hey, PDC, go coordinate these minor edits. Minor edits requested. Minor edits complete. So it went to the district to requested, and now they've completed it. Now it comes back up. They needed to reopen it for another reason, so that's one of the things we can request that they reopen it. They could also go, oops, I totally got that paragraph wrong, and they could reopen it themselves and pull it back. So they did that. And then when they're done again, minor edits complete, and then it starts right where it was before. Right where it was before is it was originally with Margie and Katasha. So once it got to complete again, it didn't need to get reapproved by the PDC. It started right off with Margie and Katasha. They reviewed it and then provided the recommendation to Jason, and Jason then approved it. So this is and this is on every single project. So every project, when you go to the bottom and you look at the approval history, that should give you a really good sense of.
And that seems to be expanded from what we saw last year.
Yeah. The minor edits piece wasn't there before, so that's a new piece. So you'll definitely see that. I would tell you that this office probably uses minor edits quite a bit, which I think is good. Yeah. Which I think is good. Because one, they're still being very respectful of the timelines, that the production folks have down in the districts, but they're making sure it's right. And so they're doing all that.
Streamlining tool.
Exactly. So then on the next part, we're going to kind of show you how it flows through things. There's a lot of information up on the screen. I went through it in a previous session last time, and it's just how things kind of flow through it. So I just want you to understand that this is a type 1, this is a type 2, this is an environmental assessment or EIS, and these are reevaluations, and they have lots of steps, and they go through lots of people, and each one of these numbers I'll kind of lay that out. Then for a type 2, the new type 2, we decided we needed a good way to communicate to our districts and our consultants and our staff for how we actually go through the process.
Monopoly board?
This was her brainchild. This was Ruth's brainchild.
I saw the smile. I thought
she came to me with it, and I could tell she's like, I hope he likes it. You know what I mean? I could tell. But she did a fantastic job.
It was my idea. I had graphic artists help.
That's right. So in the middle of this, okay, is the various players, right? At the highest level, we have the director of OEM, and then it has a listing of what they do. They review and approve. Signature appears on the cover. Other players like OGC, the environmental administrators, that's Margie and Katasha. We've got the project delivery coordinators, that first line of defense. We've got the project development manager in the district, or the district environmental manager. We've got the project manager underneath them in the district. They can have a lead reviewer, they can have other reviewers, and then they can have project editors. And if you think about what Katasha had gone through before, that was the really high level, very detailed process diagram. Over here on the left is the district draft and QA/QC process. So how do they get into the system and who's involved? So they identify some editors. They can optionally identify some reviewers and a lead reviewer. They're preparing things. When it gets satisfied to a point, it can either come out of the review process or the editor process to the project manager. The project manager, confirms or returns it to the people ahead of them. Think about those gate concepts, and then moving on to his leadership, which is the project development manager and the district environmental manager. Hey, we'd like to move this on. If it's the first time anybody's seen it, now if type 2s are documents, type 2s, EAs, EISs, reevaluations are ones that need to funnel up to OEM. Type 1s do not, so this is type 2. On the initial, that's what this bottom part is, the initial, and it happens in that ERC system, electronic review and comment system. So the PDC, and you'll notice we got the players that recognize up there, they get sent an email, they verify, hey, is it good, or no, do I need to send it back? If it's good, they begin their process. They identify who their reviewers are, they review everything, they submit their comments back to the district and ERC. They then work together with themselves, perhaps legal, depending on the nature of the project, and the district to resolve the comments, and they stay in that process until all the comments are resolved to everybody's satisfaction. Okay, and that's what this sort of, loop is intended tended to imply that you've got comment resolution and you keep going until everyone's happy. And once everybody's happy, then we start moving into the OEM approval process. So again, it's the project manager has it. It's got to go through the district leadership. District leadership sends it to the project delivery coordinator. They're verifying everything is the way we said things were going to be. Otherwise, they can send it back or they can do minor edits. If everything's the way they said it can be, they move it on to the next step. Those environmental administrators, they can, push it back, or they could do some minor edits, and then eventually it goes on to Jason for approval, unless you'll see this one little side note, which is if legal sufficiency is required, say it has an individual 4F, then in addition to Jason not being able to sign a document unless Margie and Katasha have both recommended he can sign it, okay? If the document itself requires legal sufficiency has to occur as well. Remember we showed you the various queues for each person?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it can't even go into Jason's queue if the document requires legal sufficiency and all those dates below him haven't happened. And so this is one of the ways we kind of communicate to the staff out there how you would do it. And you'll notice next to each person's name, it'll give an indication of the types of activities that they can perform, at each one of those levels.
Everybody recognizes the monopoly.
And everybody recognizes the monopoly. I know
one of the districts, they have another process, and they said, "Oh, can we have the illustrator document so we can do something?"
they did, and we're going to wait like a week and ask them for a version of theirs. I want to see the end of it. And because I already talked about legal sufficiency, I did want to keep a slide in there. I know you guys think it's important. I know these guys already know, but all throughout the process, one of the questions you asked Katasha is how do they get involved? And she mentioned it absolutely right on the money. There's 4 ways they get involved. If it's an EIS or a 4F, an individual 4F, right out of the gate, they're involved. They're involved in all the meetings. They're involved on all the resolution. They're involved in all the reviews. And then in the end, they're expected to do the legal sufficiency. And the hope is, if they've been involved since the very beginning, that isn't a long, arduous process. Okay, so that's number 1. Okay, and that one's just a given, no matter what. Then there are the 3 other ways that they can be involved. They can be involved because the district says, hey, I think we need some help with this project. Can we pull in legal? The staff here, with a much larger, understanding of things, can go, there's some things going on with this project. We really like to have OGC involved, so that's way number 2. And then there can be OGC just, either knowing about the project or knowing about what's going on with the issue, maybe locally or nationally or something, that they say, hey, we want to be involved. So any one of those 3. So what that means is anything that's not legal sufficiency, they're kind of doing the OGC review process, which means, and Jason had mentioned it earlier, they're on the same timeline as his staff. So they do the reviews at the same time. They're held to the same 30 days. They're an advisory position. We're having all of those various conversations. Once we get to legal sufficiency, Jason can't sign it until legal does. It's going to sit there until it's right, and they'll tell us when it is. And the hope is, because we've had them involved since the beginning on the project, there shouldn't be any big gotchas at the end. And that's kind of what this slide talks about. And then all these things are in videos. This is going to be a video. You guys can go to this video. It's going to have all of this stuff. So I think with that, we're going to turn it back over to Mike. He's going to go through type 2s and a little bit on type 1 enhancements. Let me jump back over to him. And then after Mike, we're going to go right to Ruth, and then we're so Mike was a little longer than 3, but don't worry.
And Pete did show some of this in the previous slide, so I'll try to keep this brief. But the way that they get to the form is through the Type 2 termination form link on the menu, and then they are able to punch in an FM number.
And just to mention while he's punching in the FM number, so again, we're linked to the FDOT work program database. That number has to exist in the approved FDOT work program database. If they type in a number that isn't in the FDOT work program database, which for everybody else, that's what we consider to be the bank for the department. If it's not in there, they'll be presented with a message that says this is not in the work program database. Go work with your work program folks to get this corrected. So in order to even move on, it's got to be, you know, a work program number that is in that approved database, and it can't be used for other stuff. If you happen to pick an FM number that is already a type 1, you can't do a type 2 on a project that's already been identified as a type 1. So there's a lot of internal controls in place to make sure that our folks are getting to the right projects. And before we had SWEP, people were doing this on paper. And so there were a lot of, you know, people transposing numbers and stuff like that. So it's been a really good bang for the buck to kind of get folks all working off the same sheet music.
And once they type it in and load it, they'll see the form, and it's organized, like Pete mentioned, according to the various sections. Those sections have a status. Some of them aren't started yet. In this case, no editors have been assigned. So this is just the district environmental manager working on this document right now. They can assign editors. They can also assign reviewers. And the way they do that is just by typing in a name. So for example, I could add this person, and I can say which sections I want them to edit. And I can continue to do that. I can also add reviewers if I choose to. And go ahead and save that. And you can also choose the sections for the reviewers. You can change that after the fact. Emails are generated to the editors and reviewers, letting them know they've been assigned, linking to this type form.
Congratulations.
That's right. Do a good job.
So they can navigate through the form like a wizard, going next through the sections, or they can just jump to a section. The one I wanted to show you, for example, is public involvement. So one thing I'll point out is we have links to the PD&E manual chapters. Those have this little chapter icon, and they can get right to that part of the chapter to get more information if needed. If I was trying to fill out this section and then say it was ready for review by the district, there's some validation that happens. So you can see I can't move it forward because I haven't put in the date of public hearing, I haven't put in the summary public hearing, and I haven't attached a PIP. So that's kind of one of those validation checks that we have. And then we have this concept of technical materials versus attachments. Attachments are wholly included into the environmental document as appendices at the end. The technical materials are just that. They're just referenced as technical materials. And so they can either choose from their existing files if they happen to have uploaded it already, or they can upload a file from their system.
If there are technical materials that are referenced in the document, that gives it an impetus that they have to upload them.
Yeah.
Although they'll
have
be
to upload
shown as a separate document.
So the way that it works is that just to kind of double down on what Mike said, there's a spot in there, and for things that should be attached, you click attach, you go navigate to it. At the same time, when you attach it, it stores it in the project file. It knows it's part of this approval record. When the type 2 is approved and the whole thing is printed out in one giant PDF, it's part of it.
Right.
For technical materials, there's a spot where you link it, and then there's a section in the document that says technical materials, and it's a list of all of those documents. So you know which technical documents are being referenced, and they're already in the project file.
They're in SWEPT already.
That's right.
They've already, Link has brought it in and stored it in their
100%. Yep, so they could do it through the project file, or they could do it through here. either way gets it into the project file. If they navigated to it in the form for the first time, then they just browse to it, they find it, and then it stores it in the right spot in the project file. If they had already put it in the project file, instead of saying, I want to go browse to it on my computer, I want to browse to it on my project file. And they just navigate to it and make the internal connection to. It's already been uploaded, that's the one.
And we have some notes on there for them that explain that further in case, it's been a while since they've used it. Technical materials are referenced, attachments are incorporated. And they can save as they go. They can send individual sections for review. If they're ready for review, they can also choose all of the sections that are ready for review and send them up at once for review.
And so, interestingly enough, exactly where he's at now, you'll notice this is sort of the summary or status. So if you're a project manager or somebody that's in charge of this document, you can see all the various sections. Oh, they haven't been started. Oh, they're in progress. Oh, they're ready for your review. Oh, they're ready for approval. And really what you're doing is on each one of those sections, you're getting them to a point where they've all been reviewed and they're ready to move on to the approval process. And that update status will change based on the activities you've completed relative to that.
When it's already they're green.
Yep, when they all turn green, then you're ready to go. But again, that's an internal check because it won't let you move it on until they're all green, and it tells you what you need to do. Yeah.
So they can create a PDF of the draft, type 2 as they go. Just wanted to show you that PDF does have bookmarks that link to all the sections. And here we have a listing of the technical materials. So far I've just added the one, and then there's the attachment, which is listed, and then this is actually the PDF that I said was, I believe, the public hearing transcript in that case. So
that's not it.
Right. It's appended to the document. Oh, okay. You're going to show a real example. Great. So that's the type 2. I guess some other stuff I could show you, just quickly point out. In addition to the PD&E manual links, in some sections we have the actual videos, right? Do you know what?
In natural resources? Yes.
Yeah. So this is where we've had folks from this office who did a training video explaining, the thinking behind or how to fill out that section appropriately.
More guidance.
But easy to get to, guys.
Yeah, it's right there, and it's about that same.
Right.
This is how you fill out this piece. This is what we're looking for. This is what you should be analyzing. This is the type of documentation that should be there.
I can dig into this more. I can jump over to the type 1.
Yeah, I think you're good.
So on the type 1, again, you punch in the FM number, and I think I have one loaded already. Here we go. So this is the type 1 checklist. Here's where they can put in related FM numbers. Here's where they can add additional identifiers. For example, those DDIR numbers. They can indicate if the project is LAP. If they say it's LAP, they can choose the LAP agency, and they can choose the CE type. And then in the questions, I'll just highlight on question 6, you can see the new language about Magnuson-Stevens Act as well as the EFH, and then on the planning consistency question at the end, there's the statement, this project was reviewed for fiscal constraint, etc., and then the appropriate LRTP and TIP pages must be submitted as supporting documentation. So here's where they would upload this.
Yeah, and I guess if you go to the very top too, because actually you'll see it. Can you go to the project page for it?
Oh.
And just next to the FM number itself, you see the ISO links, TIP link.
Yes.
You won't see the PSEE link. That's Project Suite Enterprise Edition. It's internal to the department. It won't help you guys because it's behind the secure FDOT firewall for applications, so you won't see that. But yeah, you can click on the tip-stip link. One thing when you guys are thinking about that, especially when you're looking at things that are in the past, especially for type 1s, one of the things, the requirements that we have is, one, that you got to have the tip-stip pages, right? But what's important about that I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware is that in many cases, those type 1s are started and completed very quickly, right? So if you're looking at approvals from May 1st of 2018 till April 30th of 2019, and the fiscal year changes on July 1st of 2019, the links themselves are always updated links. But say the approval was in the last fiscal year and the money was from last fiscal year, they'll have a page from last fiscal year. And you click on the link and it'll say nothing found. Well, of course nothing's found because it was the previous fiscal year and it's completed and the work has been done. So I just wanted to highlight that for you guys to kind of think about that, because they're all snapshots. So the tip-stip links are always live links to the database. So just think about the approval you're looking at and whether or not that money should really be there.
And that's also why we want them to upload it.
Yeah, we tell them to make a PDF and upload it, so we know at this moment when you did this approval, that's what it was.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
That'll resolve the first question that I get.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
Now, this link isn't taking me to the tip-stip.
Yeah, that would be.
Look for the PDF in the lower section.
That's 100%. Yeah. So I kind of encountered that myself, and it took me a minute to figure out what was happening, and so I figured that was good information to convey.
Thank you.
I think that was it. So I think we're going to turn it over to Ruth, and she's going to log in as one of you guys. So let me just shift over to Ruth. Christian.
I'm actually logging in with myself.
Okay. All right. So don't forget to. Let me have that mic. Get a little closer. Okay. And yep, should be good to go.
So get your email. Just the link, and I did not log in. My computer just died.
Oh, your computer did just die. Was it not plugged in?
Want to use mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
All right, we'll switch
It is plugged in, but you know what?
Yeah.
These plugs have been giving me problems.
They have been. So, yeah, go ahead and get it logged in, and I'm making you the presenter.
I was going to say it died while she was the presenter, so she's no longer got the capability of allowing somebody else to become the presenter.
No, we're okay. But so hang on for just a minute, because I want to see if I can't get Joe. Can you come sit next to Ruth, because it might take me a minute to get it back on the screens. So everybody else can already see it out on the screens because they're on GoToMeeting, and I'm gonna log into our represent because she was the one that was presenting. So it'll just take me a minute, but if you're sitting next to her, then you'll be able to see it.
I got you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So we don't need to be as complicated as the districts because we don't have to enter all the information. So we've designed this page that when you log in with your role, you see what you need to see to get your job done. The basic navigation is the same, no changes. Mike already went through that. A couple things to point out, because I don't think this was available last year, was the ability to export to Excel, your list, PDF it. One thing for sure that is different is this table, data table, is what Pete was mentioning. I wanted to point out a couple things. First, you can decide what you want to see. If you don't need to see all these columns, you don't have to. Like, for example, 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, we implemented the additional identifiers. So most of them are going to be not applicable. You probably don't need that. You don't need to show it on your screen. You know, you can just click, turn it off. So you can turn on and off the columns like that. Okay. Oh, again, you can also, just to give yourself more space, get rid of the left menu by clicking on there. You can copy or the data from the table, Excel, whatever. You can also start doing searching and sorting, like say I just wanted to look at District 3 Type 2 documents. And I can select that. You can also sort, like by date or whatever, by clicking the sort button. And then from there, you can start looking at it. One thing I wanted to point out, though, it will remember what you selected. So the next time you log in, this will be selected. I'll have District 3 Type 2 CE. So why that's important is, like, it's nice if you're concentrating on a certain set and you have a bunch in that set and you're going and coming, but you do have to remember to reset it.
To reset your filters.
Yeah. So you would just say all. Let's go ahead and let's see. The other thing we got this is the same. The help and the contacts are all the same. But going on to the the project page. Kind of slow on the wireless here. Okay. So project page, the top part, again, looks just like what we saw before. This is one of the new Type 2s, and when they update the project description, it includes the maps and the tables and stuff right there on the home page. It has the project schedule, project documents. Again, the important thing to point out to you for this year is if you go down to the actual environmental document, your supporting documents are right there. You click on that, and there they all are. They're also organized by topic, and all the other project files are too, but to me, that's just really nice to be able to go right there and find everything.
There was some confusion with that. We walked through it a couple of times, but.
Good. Well, we hope that helps.
That'll help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's fine.
I wanted to, so I'll be able to. It's going to actually take a little while, but I had it downloaded already. I wanted to show you that a real new Type 2, but this is actually 300 pages.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I remember. I can't actually. Do you have any questions about anything? No, it's very similar to what we've already experienced. Nice augmentations. Well done. It does get a lot of clarification. I would always use a third-party method to confirm and look at the project to see what concerns are, whether I was doing the NEPA review or afterwards when I was looking at a project itself under the audit. I'd pull up Google Earth and go see where it was.
Gotcha.
Put in a little polyline and go, okay, that's where it's at. Okay, what are the concerns that I see? Did they address this? And that was part of my kind of third-party check. And most of the folks that were doing reviews were doing similar things, either pulling up other databases and other methods to see, whether it's Coast Guard, whether it's Fish and Wildlife, GIS layers that they have access to. So it's nice to have that mapping right there in front of you. So thank you.
Not all of our projects have that little map just because.
Yeah, last year, some of the maps on the right there would show up and others wouldn't.
It would depend on the nature of the project. So if it's a district-wide, and if it's not tied to a specific piece of pavement, so specific piece of pavement, it'll have a nice map. If it doesn't have a specific piece of pavement, it'll probably show the state of Florida.
One thing that I can show you here is just a real example of the project notifications, also to show you what that looks like. It brings you up a page listing all of the notifications, and then you can actually click view the details to actually see the content of the email that they received. This is that enhancement, one of the enhancements.
Action 4.
Bold, highlighted.
Yes.
Like a screaming
Well, I would absolutely tell you I believe it's working. The phone calls have stopped. we used to have some repeat offenders that, why can't I click this thing? Because it's not for you. That's why you can't click it. Those phone calls have stopped. Because now we tell them the first thing they do is, was it your action? No, then you're just copied.
And then down here, again, this is, like I said, a real example of a project that has been through the initial request for approval, minor edits.
Planning consistency table has been updated. I see that one there. Some minor edits.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was going to take so long.
200 megs.
The type 2, the new ones, because they include those attachments, can get quite large.
It has the public hearing attached to it, the transcript.
The transcript itself, certified transcript, so, and they're doing OCR while it's going through the whole thing. OCR.
I don't think
we're not doing that.
Yeah. Well, maybe some of them do.
They might be on there.
That also is just I know you've got it automated, but the wizardry that you did to make it automated, where your PDFs have a bookmarked link for each one of the topical areas. Thank you very much. That was very nice.
Stephanie did it. Over there. The quiet one in the corner.
One thing I've noticed is, depending on the browser you use, if you open it in the browser,
You can open it now.
Yeah, show them that, because that happens to me. If you open it, if you click
I can
here, it'll open in Chrome. Chrome doesn't support bookmarks. You actually need to open it from where you download it. Can you go back to this tab? It's not there.
Sure, it's under download.
Yeah, so it would be there, I think, under one of these. Try QAQC.
Not in your downloads folder.
Well, can I try for a second? Let's see. So I'm going to just download another file and see where it goes.
Little tiny one.
So it's going to this QAQC folder, and there it is. So if you open it with Adobe, then you have the handy bookmarks.
I got you.
That's actually one of the key reasons I wanted to open it up, so you could see that. But and of course, you can go through the whole thing.
But apparently, the quiet one over in the corner did that. Hold on.
Yeah, she did. She did great.
So what I like about it, and this is Stephanie's work, is all that form input that you saw. The little, it looks like a document.
It's a generated document.
Yeah.
It is. Which will have the approved signed signature, everything.
Got the signature.
That by itself goes to the survey that I asked you about, which is really, this is development of a fully electronic NEPA system.
That's our intent.
Yeah. Versus uploading PDFs.
Yeah.
Of a paper document that was scanned or something.
That's right.
I know that's a little archaic.
Well, and I want to say that's probably where we started. We probably started off as a document library and then gradually began to embed the forms. Now, one of the other things, just since we've got you here, is we're making electronic versions of all the 4F forms so that when the 4F resources are identified, they can go through steps and say, for this project, how many resources, and come to individual decisions on that one's programmatic, that one's exempt, this one has to be an individual, and all of those various things, and putting in the controls in place to say, well, these ones can be signed off by Roy and Matt with their concurrence down. Jason is the only one that can sign this, and by the way, it's an individual. It has an individual 4F, which also means legal had to sign off on legal sufficiency first before it can go to Jason. And we're in the process of integrating all of those so that they stop having a bunch of Word documents and each one for a different report for each one of these resources, but pulling it into one unified interface that allows them to individually step through each unique resource and come to a unique decision about each one of those. That one's no use, that one's exempt, this one is needs an individual, and then come to a summary of all of that information that can be approved at one time. Some things approved at different levels, depending on the nature of what's happening with that 4F resource or not, if it's a no use. I think that's all we had.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's all?
Yeah. So actually, that's probably a good point. The one other thing I know that should be evident, I'm going to take this back from you, Ruth, and make myself a presenter, and share my screen, and just go back to this guy, which is this guy. I hope what you guys walk away from this conversation, in addition to the idea that we're accessible, we're here to help, whatever the questions are, just ask. But I put up this list because I think, one, it captures what we've done in the last year that you guys just need to come up to speed on. Mm-hmm. But it also shows a significant commitment by the Department of Transportation to be successful under NEPA. Like this, we're all in. Like this should be a clear demonstration of all in. Let's hear all the things that we're continuing to work on. So I just wanted to toot our own horn a little bit. That I feel like I feel like we're working for a good state that's really behind this, that applies the resources and the energy, and we are always looking to improve. And I think just putting that list up there is a really good reflection on, or all of those training events, or all the all great reflections on the idea that Florida Department of Transportation is really all in on this process and wants to do a good job at it. So I just wanted to say that.
Well done.
Thank you, sir. Do you guys have any other questions? It's a little bit after 3. We kept you guys a little bit.
I think I've asked mine while we were going.
Okay. Anybody else on the line? Do you have any questions before I stop the recording? I think Luis left, and I know Scott could type a question. He had one.
Hi, I've called in since, so no, everything looks terrific. Like Joe said, very, very impressive. That it's seems to be a completely electronic NEPA approval and processing system. Very interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying. We think we can make it very consistent, repeatable, and we can put a lot of controls in place that really help us, make sure we manage those, the language, the analysis, the way it's presented.
And institute the controls quickly.
That's right.
And efficiently.
Exactly. Know that the next approval that comes out, will have those things in place. So yeah, I appreciate the kind words.
Thank you, Scott.
Is there anything else we can do for you guys today before we send you on your way? And I do the
It's your account.
No, I think we're done. If you want to stop recording.
Okay. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Scott, it was great to finally talk to you for a few minutes. If you need anything in the future, just reach out to us. We're happy to help.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Have a
Take
great one,
care.
Scott.
You too.